used to the defects, had come to find an almost perverse sort of comfort in them. It meant she was coping, getting on with things, and that was, after all, what was expected of one, even when the day stretching ahead seemed an eternity. She pushed away her cold cup and rose, tightening the belt of her dressing gown around her slight body as she padded barefoot towards the front of the house. The tile felt gritty beneath her feet, and she curled her toes as she knelt to gather the post. One envelope outweighed the rest, and the serviceable brown paper bore her solicitor's return address. She dropped the other letters in the basket on the hall table and ran her thumb carefully under the envelope's seal as she walked towards the back of the house. Freed from its wrapping, the thick sheaf of papers unfolded in her hands, and the words leapt out at her. In the matter of the marriage of Lydia Lovelace Brooke Ashby and Morgan Gabriel Ashby. She reached the bottom of the stairs and stopped as her brain picked out words from among the legalese. Final decree. Petition of divorce granted this day. The pages slipped from her numb fingers, and it seemed to her that they drifted downwards, cradled on the air like feathers. She had known it would come, had even thought herself prepared. Now she saw her hollow bravado with a sudden sickening clarity. Her shell of acceptance had been fragile as the skin of algae on a pond. After a long moment she began to climb the stairs slowly, her calves and thighs aching with the burden of each step. When she reached the first floor, she held onto the wall like an unsteady drunk as she made her way to the bathroom. Shivering, shallow-breathed, she closed and locked the door. The motions required a deliberate concentration. Her hands still felt oddly disconnected from her body. The bath taps next. She adjusted the temperature with the same care. Tepid. She'd read somewhere that the water should be tepid. And salts. Yes, of course. She added the bath salts. Now the water would be warm and saline, satin as blood. Satisfied, she stood, and the deep blue silk of the dressing gown puddled at her feet. She stepped in and sank into the water, Aphrodite returning from whence she came, razor in hand. Victoria McClellan lifted her hands from the keyboard, took a breath and shook herself. What in hell had just happened to her? She was a biographer, for Christ's sake, not a novelist. And she'd never experienced anything like this. Certainly never written anything like this. She had felt the water slide against her skin, had known the seductive terror of the razor. She shivered. It was all absolute rubbish, of course. The whole passage would have to go. It was full of supposition, conjecture, and the loss of objectivity that was fatal to a good biography. Swiftly she blocked the text, then hesitated with her finger poised over the delete key. And yet, maybe the more rational light of morning would reveal something salvageable. Rubbing her stinging eyes, she tried to focus on the clock above her desk. Almost midnight. The central heating in her draughty Cambridgeshire cottage had shut off almost an hour ago, and she suddenly realized she was achingly cold. She flexed her stiff fingers and looked about her, seeking reassurance in familiarity. The small room overflowed with the flotsam of Lydia Brooke's life, and Vic, tidy by nature, sometimes felt powerless before the onslaught of paper, letters, journals, photographs, manuscript pages, and her own index cards, all of which defied organisation. But biography was an unavoidably messy job.